Assalamualaikum and a very good evening. I propose to Madam Ida and my fellow friends. So today I am Mirzati binti Khalid Saifullah.
I'm Adam Hakimi bin Muhammad Azhar.
And I'm Muhammad Al-Fida bin Muhammad Izzan.
We are going to present you the importance of different types of context to language use. So this is our team as we mentioned just now. So let me introduce you to what we are presenting you. So in this presentation, we will explore the critical role that different types of context play in language uses, focusing on situational that will be presented by Abid Haidar, cultural context will be presented by me, and interpersonal context will be presented by Adam Hakimi. So understanding how context shapes communication is essential, as language is more than just words. It is influenced by environment, it is influenced by cultural background and relationships between speakers. Through this analysis, we aim to demonstrate how these contexts affect the way we express ourselves, interpret ourselves, and navigate social interactions. And each type of context offers a unique lens through which language can be understood and used effectively. And we will explain the importance of each within the dynamics of everyday communication.
To keep the ball rolling, or without further ado, I will explain to you the situational context. First of all, it is important to use proper language to determine appropriateness of language. In any interaction, the situational context dictates the formality, tone, and choice of words. For example, in Malaysia, where languages like Malay, English, Mandarin, or even Tamil are commonly used, the appropriateness of language is highly context dependent. So, what I understand by the sentence is that we need to know who we speak to or who we talk to, whether he is or she is she's a Malay, Indian, or Chinese. So we can find a proper way to approach that. And second one is formal and informal settings. For example, when we speak to government official, we don't use any kind of bahasa rojak or slang or Manglish. We converse in a proper or formal language, or we call it RP, received pronunciation. For example, in formal setting, when we in a situation when we talk to the higher ups, how can I help you, sir? So there's one example of proper formal language. And informal settings, such as with our friends, when we invite them to eat, hey, let's eat, or eat, let's go. So that's how we talk when we within informal settings. Yes. Next place is norms of specific situation. So, as I mentioned earlier, it's just the same as formal and informal. For example, when we are at our workplace and our home, so the language or approach of how we use the language is different. When we at our workplace, when we talk with our co-workers or with our subordinates, maybe the tone is more likely become more polite and also quite formal. Not really formal, but it's quite formal. So it's really different when we going back to our home, where we can express ourselves more freely. Next slide. And the third one is relationship status and intimacy. So the intimacy between or the connection between our friends or family also play a vital role when we use how we use our language. Maybe when we talk to our friends, it's different. When we talk to our parents, we cannot put it on the same level. For example, the word sayang. You use it to express your love for the loved one, not for all the people. And the fourth one, on how we use the language to resolve any conflict and to negotiate with people. Language in conflicts or any situation of disagreement, language can become more direct or confrontational, but also effective. It often involves careful phrasing to avoid escalating tension, or softening language to avoid any kind of disagreement. And the last one for my part is cultural norms and expectation. The norms surrounding how people communicate vary by culture, affecting language use in specific situations. For example, in some cultures, interrupting someone may be seen as rude, while in others, lively overlapping conversation might be normal. Here in Malaysia or in Asia, when we interrupt someone, it is considered as very rude. But in Western countries, it is considered okay to do that. And also how we use our gesture, especially eye contact. In Western, it is okay to keep an eye contact with people we talk to. But in Malaysia, it is considered very rude, especially when we talk to our parents or to the higher ups. It is considered very, very impolite to keep an eye contact with them when we speak to them.
So, moving on to the next one, in cultural context. Cultural context plays a pivotal role in shaping the use of language, because we know that culture and the usage of English is not just the usage of words, but the language used in culture shows our norms, our values, our traditions, our cultural background. So, moving on to the next slide, I will elucidate on the first one, which is the meaning and interpretation. As we all know, the same word or phrase can have vastly different meanings depending on the cultural context in which it is used. It might be relatable in Malaysia, but when you go somewhere else, such as American, they can perceive it differently. And without understanding the cultural background, a speaker may misinterpret the meaning behind certain expressions. This is one of the examples I'm going to tell you. Direct communication in Western cultures and indirect communication in Asian culture. So, do you know that in Western cultures, if you convey directly, you will be perceived as someone confident, someone that want to be straightforward. It seems like you are a very straightforward person. But if you very direct in Malaysia or in Japan, it might be rude, because we prefer indirect communication to convey our feelings, because for me, our culture emphasize politeness in speaking, in our conversation. This is applied in Malaysia and Japan. So this is the example of indirect communication in Malaysia. Do you want to go out tomorrow? Says the man, and the woman reply, I'll see first. This might be a form of saying a no, but in a polite way. But if you go to Western and you talk like that, they might perceive you as someone indecisive. You cannot decide. So, moving on to the next one, I will elucidate on the non-verbal communication. So, non-verbal cues such as gestures, eye contacts, and personal space vary significantly across culture and impacts how verbal messages are understood. The same gesture can mean something entirely different in another culture, altering the intended communication. As for instance, I'm going to tell you about the maintaining of eye contact in Western culture and in Malaysian culture. As mentioned by Ivy just now, maintaining eye culture in Western culture might show that you are confident, that you want to convey, you want to seem like you are presentable. But if you maintain a very long eye contact in Malaysia, especially with the eldest one, they might seem that you want somehow it might be perceived as you are being rude or you are overly confident. That's how people perceive it. I mean, this is reality, but yeah, it is the way it is. For me, the importance of this is you as example, you as an outsider. As example, you are from America and you come to Malaysia, people might perceive you as someone that is rude if you're talking to an elder and you maintain a very long eye contact. So being respectful is one of the importance for you to acknowledge when you cross someone that's from different culture. Next, we are going to use we are going to present the next one, which is idiomatic expressions and metaphors. You know, idiomatic expression and metaphors can bring different meaning, lies a meaning behind it. And idioms and metaphors are often culturally specific and may not make sense when translated literally. I will give an example later, and these expressions are deeply rooted in the cultural history and experiences of a society. This is the example, translation of idiomatic expressions. In Malay, we say bagai kacang merupakan kulit, to say that someone that has forgotten their roots, forgotten their home. But if we translate it to English, like a peanut forgetting its shell, people will say that it's ridiculous. People might perceive it as something that not understandable. So the next one, I can say bagai pinang dibelah dua. Bagai pinang dibelah dua, in English we say that it is a match made in heaven. But if we translate it literally, it is like a better nut split in two, which also sounds ridiculous and unacceptable. So, by acknowledging idiomatic expression and metaphor, we can use language in a right way, meaning that we cannot just translate from Malay to English, but we must understand the context within it. We must understand the use behind it. We must understand the cultural meaning, the values behind it. Okay, let's move to the next one, which is humor and cultural differences. Okay, cultural references, sorry. Humor is highly cultural specific. In Malaysia, we have different humor, but you go to America, you have different humor. But we all can relate to that sometimes due to social media and slangs that we share together according to our generations. And jokes often rely on shared cultural knowledge, norms, and taboos. Humor that works in one culture may fall flat or even offend in another, depending on the cultural values and sensitivities involved. Here I included two examples, and I will briefly explain on the importance of it. So, the first one is joke about certain animal. In Malaysia, specifically Muslim communities, pig is considered as unclean animal. But if we make a joke about pig in different culture, American or anywhere else that's not related to Malaysia, it is considered normal. But in Malaysia, it is conceived as something that is sensitive because it relates to our religion. And the next one is political joke. In Malaysia, I mean a lot of places, not only Malaysia, we tend to be more sensitive about political joke because you can get sued. But in Western culture, making joke about politics is considered as satire is normal and it's acceptable, especially on social media where you can see in Instagram, in TikTok, on Twitter, they make joke about it. So it is important for us to acknowledge the culture of others, and so that we are sensitive about what can we say and what we cannot say, so that we maintain a respectful bond and communication with others, even though we came from different culture. Like example, if you are from America, then when you come to Malaysia, you probably should make a research on the peak term where it is related to religion matter. So you should not use it as a joke here. Okay. Even in Malaysia, it is offensive. And lastly, we're going to talk about language learning and multilingualism. In multilingual societies like Malaysia, we live in a very harmonious state where Malays, Chinese, Indians, we live in one society. Cultural context influences which language is used in different settings. Malaysians often switch between languages such as Malay, English, Mandarin and Tamil depending on the social group they are interacting with. This is due to our diverse tapestry of races in Malaysia. And this phenomenon known as code switching is a common example of how culture and language are interconnected. As example, in a professional setting, Malaysians might predominantly use English as it is seen as the language of business. It is lingua franca. It is generally known by everyone around the globe. But when speaking with family or within our ethnic community, they may switch to Malay, Mandarin or Tamil. This switching is not only about language but also about signaling a cultural connection and shared identity. I'm going to tell you that this is not a bad thing, but it reflects our culture, it reflects our bring up. And then when I can see this example when I was in high school, where we converse in different language, which is code switching. And for me, in language use, in the context of English, I think it is important for us to acknowledge the right usage of English, which is the received pronunciation, even though we use code switching. However, this shows our uniqueness of our culture. But at the same time, when we use English, we have to maintain the formality when we use it. I think that's all from me.
Thank you, Big and Ace, for the explanation. And I will be touching on the interpersonal context. Interpersonal context can be categorized within what the speaker is conveying within the language. So that the meaning of it is that the context is related to the speaker himself or herself. So the first one is interpersonal, defines power dynamic and social role. In any interaction, the relative power or social status of the individual shapes the language used. It is tied to the characteristic and upbringing of the speakers. For instance, if you are born in a family that practice ethics and values within the family, you will be a very respectable person in terms of the language that you use and you speak. But if you were to be in a family that doesn't apply the usage of ethics, respect and values, you will not be a communicative speaker who put respect on the language, and the language that you spoke are not very connected to the idea of respect itself. Second one is, this is important in hierarchical societies, such as in many traditions, Malaysia setting where respect for elder and authority figure is deeply ingrained. For this one, the Malaysian context of respect ties deeply towards the hierarchy which means people of the elder or people are more in age is tend to be more respected and looked up to more than the teens and youngling, because in Malaysia they are considered to be more inexperienced, having more experience and more aware of things that surrounding them. For instance, they know more about a certain environment, certain historical context, and certain activities because they have lived longer than those who are still in their teens or still in their adulthood. So, in a workplace, Malaysia employee would likely use more formal language. Just now I stated if we have people who are more in age, we will respect them. But in workplace, this concept is still in place, but we respect them in a more formal manner. We will communicate with them effectively by applying the technique of we will refer them when we want to ask about something and address about something that they may or they have the knowledge about. So when we were to confront them or ask them about this, we will be more polite because we know they are more inexperienced than us. So when we have this understanding, we will tend to be more we will tend to be more respectable and have the ethic in communication, so that any misunderstanding or any miscommunication wouldn't happen. Moving on. Second one is the influence, formality, and tone. The interpersonal context helps speaker decide whether to use formal or informal language, especially in multilingual society. This is tied heavily, like I mentioned, to the concept of knowing people and how to interact with them. You must distinguish between when you want to use formal spoken language or informal spoken language, so that when you have these differences identified, you will be able to understand when to use the formal communication technique. For instance, in workplace, like I mentioned, you must know that people there is from different background. There are many who are not the same as you. There were people from different race, religion, and upbringing. So in that context, you must use formal. But let's say if it were outside of the workplace or in your normal environment, for instance, in your living area, you will meet people still in the same manners, like different religion, different race, and different upbringing. But it is tend to be more informal style of communication because the formality is not there, but you still are respectable toward other, and you acknowledge the fact that we are a country of multicultural people. So, among close friends, Malaysian might use formal mixed language, like I just stated, that blend Malay, English, and either dialect, often with relaxed slang, like bro, kita lepak mamak nanti. So that's the mix of the English language with the Malay language, with bro being the slang of brother, and kita lepak mamak nanti being the Malay language that is mixed within the communication. So it's direct translation is that bro, let's hang out at the mamak later. In a formal situation, the language become more respectful. Like I mentioned at work, you cannot use bro, let's lepak after this, or let's hang out after this. You must use phrases like may we meet after work, may we do this together, or may we complete this task together. Moving on is manage emotional connection. Language use is heavily influenced by the emotional connection between speakers. People who are close or share personal bond often use language that reflect intimacy, warmth, and understanding. Like Abid just mentioned, the level of closeness between people and the speaker is important. You cannot use language that is like that is like picturing the closeness to people that you just met. You cannot address people with a very compassionate language that you only use with your family, with a stranger, because that closeness is not there. So when you have that understanding, you will be able to distinguish the differences. So, example, in a family setting in Malaysia, emotional connection are often conveyed through the use of endearing term and familiar phrases. A child speaking to parent might use ma or abah, mother or father in a loving, informal way. For instance, a son might address to his mother that he is hungry, and he will often speak out the phrase like, "Mom, I'm hungry." So it is not like a rude statement. If we are to say that to a random stranger, that would be strange and that would be out of context. But if we were to speak it in front of our family, in this context, which is our mom, it is normal because it is in the family context. Yeah. So this expresses both need and emotional connection that only exists in a family environment and not in the outside environment. So in a professional or less familiar context, however, that emotional intimacy is absent and the language reflects more neutral, polite and respectful interaction. Like I said, we still must be respectful even though they are not part of our interpersonal family ties. Like we still have to address to people with respect and values. Like we say, "Sir, may I ask you a question?" Even though they are not closely related to us. Next. So, shape expectation of politeness and respect. Politeness is a key feature of language use that is shaped by interpersonal context. So politeness is one of the major role in Malay communication style because it is ties heavily to the behavior and how varied people from different background still in the same place connect with one another based on the understanding of politeness and respect. In Malaysian society, when speaking to someone older, we use phrase like "excuse me, mister," or "may I ask a question, mister," so that we don't sound and we don't come up to them in an disrespectful or rude manners. So this will picture our characteristic or mirror the characteristic of ourselves and help to build that connection even though there are disparity between ages. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, we do the conclusion. The conclusion is we must adapt ourselves to different contexts of language use so that we maintain a respectful and good communication with others even though we are from different culture.
And also to avoid any form of disagreement and also communication.
Yes, thank you.